Someone last night did actually ask me a very good question. You are not the Museum of Glamorgan Cricket. Well, no, as those of you who came on the tour last night will appreciate, we, Glamorgan County Cricket Club, we were formed in 1888 to represent Wales in county cricket and to bring international cricket to Wales. We've achieved both of those things. And it's great, of course, that we've got artefacts from all over Wales relating to cricket. Well, as I mentioned briefly yesterday in my opening comments, we are delighted to have been the first fully accredited cricket museum in the UK. So you can see there, David Ellis-Thomas, who came in October to give us our plaque. Our Chief Executive, Hugh Morris, whose England shirt is there, together with the yellow-handled bat. And in fact, that yellow-handled bat means an awful lot to Hugh, because in his final match for Glamorgan in 1997, against Somerset at Taunton, he scored 165 in the first innings, and then was 6 not out in the second innings when Glamorgan won. Glamorgan were county champions. So it shows you a level of something like that. I know it's only a piece of wood, some of you will say, but it's the emotional attachment. And his England shirt, some of you may have heard of Robert Croft, whose cardboard cutout is there, and there's one of Crofty's England shirts as well. So one of the key things that we've tried to do is to inspire to achieve. I'll show you some numbers in a minute, and here you can see in front some of the young children from Ascot, Pencae, a Welsh medium primary school in Cardiff. Who knows, maybe the young lady there, the young man there is looking at this and saying, I want to do that in the future. I should stress as well that one of the key strands in our Heritage Lottery application, thank you very much, sir, one of the key strands was that we had to go for accreditation. Our hands weren't tied, except they said, here's the money, but we want you to become fully accredited. And that journey was quite a long one, because we actually got the funding in 2008. We also had some funding from Visit Wales, somewhere in the region of about 1.4 million. And those of you who went on the tour last night with Paul will have seen the other display boards in the players' dining room, in the corridor, going down to the away changing room as well. Visit Wales gave us some funding as well. In fact, it's for the plasma behind Mark. I'll show you that in action in a second. Because they wanted us to have, both Heritage Lottery and Visit Wales wanted us to have facilities which were going to engage young people, which were going to be interactive. And CC4 are a Cardiff-based company who deliver interactive material. So there was a natural synergy. So in the 4 years of planning, we opened in 2012, and here, so there's the plasma behind Mark. So we began with lots of interactive displays. This is a Wii-based cricket game. I can tell you, back in 2012, the Wiis were in. By now, Wiis are old hat. But I can tell you, in fact, in 3 years, we had to replace that virtually every year. It got absolutely rammed, and in fact, we are developing this side of the museum. I'll tell you a little bit about that towards the end. It was the result of these interactive things, plus my colleague Bob there using the board. We were delighted to win the Kieran Hegarty Memorial Award Prize at the Celtic Film and Media Festival. That was held down in Cornwall. We were up against 5 or 6 other fantastic museums from the UK. I thought we might have been the token Welsh entrant, but suddenly, and it was live on S4C, Welsh Channel 4, and to suddenly then have to do a piece to camera without I hadn't done my acceptance speech or whatever. I didn't get too emotional, but it just came off the cuff. So our innovative use of technology has made us very different. That's the key point I'm making. Has made us very different to other cricket museums. We're not just a collection. I know I said about shirts and balls and bats, but we're much more than that. We've also got over 12,000, yes, 12,000 photographs in our collection. And like our friends from Cardiff, we don't know the provenance. We just know that we've got them. But thanks to the People's Collection Wales, based at National Library in Aberystwyth, we've been digitising. And you'll see some of my volunteers in a minute who've been undertaking that. And I've included this in the presentation because it's a team from North Wales, not just Glamorgan. Well, the museum has now become integral to a stadium tour. It's part of the visit, either on a match day or a non-match day. This image here is from last summer when we were one of the venues hosting the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup. I'm sure you're all aware that the England and Wales men's team beat New Zealand at Lord's in a match never to be forgotten. And we had hosted several of the group games, and in fact we're lucky enough in the international games. We're really lucky because we get free tickets to offer to school children. The grandstand here, we had over 5,000 children from all over Wales, plus neighbouring counties, coming along, and Paul, my other colleagues, had leaflets and flyers, and we use it then for promotional purposes. In fact, something like 12 of those schools, there were 57 in all, 12 of those schools have already booked up a cricket visit here, all on the back of the World Cup. The legacy is fantastic. Just to give you some other ballpark figures, you can see here that when we opened, by the end of our first year, 2,500 children coming through. Now, well, at the start of this year it was 12.5. I'm delighted, really, really delighted to tell you that now that figure has just gone over 15,000. It's not just from the local area. We have, and I'm not quite sure what the collective noun is for groups of French students, but we have, yes, an ensemble. Well, by the way, I can tell you that Paul and I can do these presentations en français. Je suis parler petit peu français, and I can say croissant. So we're trilingual. Anyway, I think that means we can ride bicycles upside. Anyway, but the key point is that Cardiff is twinned with North. And a few years ago, during one of our matches when we had children visiting, there was a lovely lady called Isabel. Her husband is an English teacher in Normandy, and she came here because her husband's family in Cardiff, and she just happened to grab me as I was heading towards lunch. Not often I get distracted, and she said, could I bring my French group here? She was seeing the children playing. So I said, yes, here you are, here's my card. And from that one group of 50, we now have something like 6,500 French children. In fact, we're even working out what we called the week before Christmas. So it'll be Joyeux Noël and all that. So they are coming over here to improve their English, even though we may have to do presentations in French. But we also have had groups from the USA, from Canada. We have the University of Basel, many students from all over Europe. Here's Paul in action. Engaging, of course we use our artifacts, our objects, dressing up a cricketer. Fantastic. The French won't have seen anything like this before. So a typical tour, just like last night, in the changing room, we insist everyone puts on a shirt. The messages we reinforce about the global family of cricket. Internationalisation. We have other schemes which are linked in with the Prevent initiative. So we're using these, what I suppose we should call handling objects. Sometimes called a victim, otherwise called a volunteer. And a fantastic opportunity. The message here, play safe. Whether they're on their skateboards later, whatever they're doing, encouraging to play safe. Sadly, we do have a story about Philip Hughes, of course, the Australian cricketer, who as you may know, was killed because his carotid artery was ruptured when a ball hit him in 2014. We make sure as well that every visit there is a play element. They're running around softball. Whether it's local, French, everyone plays. Our package on a match day is slightly different. A match will be taking place. So 4 things have evolved over time. The simple one is watch and play. So you watch, you play in the indoor school, and you learn maybe something about umpire signals in here. But of course, cricket is a game of numbers. As Glamorgan's scorer, fantastic. If any of you want to know about Duckworth Lewis later, I'm the man to ask. But we can deliver something with numeracy. We can also, that's my stump done, we can also deliver literacy. Children writing about what they see, writing about their experience. So watch and write, watch and count, and also the new one, which has been developed in the last few months, watch and work. Because as I'm sure you're aware, all the different people here who are working, whether it's a steward, security, catering, journalists, those of you who went to the media centre last night. And we actually have a partnership with Cardiff City Education Authority. And what we do is we deliver careers advice to year 7 and year 8 when they're making their GCSE options. On a match day as well, let's get up close and personal to a player or an umpire. A guard of honour. What other sport can do that? We're so lucky. A match in cricket, don't forget, it starts at 11 in the morning, go on till 6. Usually goes on for 4 days unless we win in 3. I think we did that a couple of times this year. And of course we've got one-day matches as well. So there are intervals. 40 minutes the players go off for lunch. The children can then come on and play their softball games as well. We also work with quite a few of what you may call challenging communities. Mark will say a little bit more about this. But we have something called the Riverside Challenge. Those of you who went on the tour last night will know all about the history of Riverside Cricket Club and Football Club and Cardiff City. And these are the children in one of the local schools who've won the softball tournament. We also involve Graham Wagg and other players. We've also got their councillor, Kanaya Singh, the Deputy Lord Mayor. So it's ticking many, many boxes. Not someone who works for Waitrose, but Sir Alistair Cook, the former England captain and opening batsman. As I've put there, we try to put on aspire to achieve. When we have the international matches, the international teams are training. So here, this school, Liz Pearce, the head teacher of a school from Bridgend, rewarding children for their attendance. She set up as well an after-school cricket club. And they're coming along. They probably had never heard of Alistair Cook before. But I can tell you after this visit, Liz was delighted to get a couple of pupils going in to say, Miss, can we have cricket again? This is in the autumn term. And all because they've met Alistair, signed an autograph, an experience, as I said, that might just change their lives. The feedback we get, fantastic. It'd be wrong of me to say it's all perfect, about 94%. The comments we get sometimes are about we wanted to play longer, why can't we go out on the pitch? Well, the ground staff are doing things. But as you can see here, will you come back again? Yes, the best trip we go on throughout the year, so well organised and targeted at our children. Yes, we make it a bespoke visit. We ask what the teachers want, we deliver. Now the museum's also open on match days and selected non-match days. You can see, in fact, we call these our top hats, because if I just remove one of the top hats, you can see Again, it's a clever way again of using our photographs to actually protect the touch screens. And over in the corner there behind the coffee station, we've got those as well. So children are coming in. I know these days they tend to come in with their iPads as well, but we had those set up so they could actually do some work in here. I mentioned my museum assistants, or I should say our museum assistants, our volunteers. Tony Peters, known to some of you in the room, who also works as a volunteer conservator in Glamorgan Archives. Anne here as well, who's helping to put together our catalogue. We're working our way through, just like you guys from Cardiff. And they'll be coming in once or twice a week to help us and build up our collection. We link in as well with former players. The sons of Alan Watkins. Those of you who know your cricket, Alan Watkins was in fact in cricket, has a special place in cricket history. He was the last fielder, this is now in 1948 at the Oval, the last test of the Ashes series. He was the last person, their father, there he is, was the last person to field a ball hit by the greatest player of all time, Don Bradman. He fielded the first ball, and bizarrely, second ball, Don Bradman was bowled and ended up with a career average of 99.98. Had Alan misfielded and Don Bradman got 4 runs, he would have ended up with a career average only Sir Geoffrey Boycott could have dreamt about, of over 100. In the winter, in fact, only last week, we have a programme of winter talks. Again, my stunt double there. And over here is Steve James, now of course a very well-respected journalist, writing on cricket and rugby for the Times. He's really looking forward to Sunday and then next Saturday, but again, like yesterday, Pride Before the Fall. And we get, on average, 40 or 50 people here. And again, it's themed, it's using our photos. And the people who come along then want to share their stories, their memories. So there's a little bit of oral history going on. It's bringing people in, exciting them, and then they want to share. So we're giving something back. Again, something new. I've got 2 more things just to focus on, but something else new are the memory clubs. Again, working with organisations. Some of you will know about the Sporting Memories Network, Tony Jameson Allen, as it says there, well-being through reminiscence. We've just set up a club in Newport because Glamorgan, for the first time for 54 years, played a game in Newport, Spitty Park. Some of you may know, Glamorgan used to play at Rocky Parade. But now playing at Spitty Park, so it seemed right to gather people's memories of the school children of what cricket meant to them in Newport. And again, linking in with our rich artefacts. The plan is that we're going to have an online catalogue, and when people come in, they can browse the catalogue as well. And so we can bring things out from our store, which is downstairs. The last thing I'm just going to touch on is our use of technology. And we have lots of disparate groups who come in who use a tour, like you guys last night, for some exercise. We have people with various mental health issues. We have people who are recovering, they've had addictions on drugs or alcohol. And around the stadium, there are these QR codes. And so what we've done is we've developed them. This is one of our players, Tim van der Gooten. He actually became a father last weekend. He's, as you might guess, with the name Tim van der Gooten, he's Dutch, and he's playing for Holland at the moment in the Middle East. And what we've done is we've created a series of QR codes in English, of course in Welsh, but given those numbers, also in French as well. So when our when the ensemble of French students come around, they can get their mobile phones out. Here you can see the various balls, the red balls. I will say, if you go looking for number 1 at the moment, that's covered up. because of the Cricket World Cup. But there is one out here, number 2, and if any of you have parked your cars, go along there and you go out through it to, and as it says, Croeso, that means welcome in Welsh, the welcome stand. So we are looking then at adding to those, adding more information, and if I just finish by saying that we've worked with a company called historypoints.org, I think it is, their website. We've worked with a company called History Points, based in North Wales, and we were delighted. In June, at the end of June, from the director of History Points, very nice man called Rodri, and he sent an email saying, Andrew, I have some very good news for you. We have over 170,000 QR code plaques like that all over Wales at various heritage attractions. And would you believe it, numbers 3 and 5, number 3 was the number 1 for the month of June, and number 5 was actually 5th. Simply, of course, with all the footfall coming through associated with the Rugby World Cup. But it has led, I know Paul and I, we were just commenting earlier this morning, it has led to an increase in the number of individuals or small groups coming around and promoting the museum, visitors coming to Cardiff. Oh, didn't know you have a cricket museum. Well, okay, if you don't live in Cardiff, you don't know about this lovely jewel. But it has actually stimulated a further increase in visitors coming in, and the average dwell time might be an hour and a half, learning, looking, and just like you, I hope, enjoying your time here at the home of Welsh cricket. So just to finish off, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mark, who's just going to tell you about a couple of other things that we are doing.
Thank you, Andrew. If Andrew starts talking about Duckworth Lewis to you, phone the police, please. Whatever you have to do to leave the room quickly. And if he starts singing in French, you know, that's a disaster. But no, great. So hats off to Andrew and Paul and the other guys that we've got doing this. Selling this place, it is a fantastic asset, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Taking the whole experience of coming to the stadium here to a different level, we have, through some Home Office support, Building a Stronger Britain, tried to tackle some pretty serious issues in society today through the medium of a stadium tour, a school's visit, that type of thing, where we merge practical cricket activity with workshops in the museum here and in the other function rooms that we've got to look at some really serious issues like intolerance, like anti-terrorism, and looking then at wholesome subjects to become solutions to those. So belonging. What does belonging mean if I'm a 15-year-old girl born and bred in Cardiff and mum and dad from the Hall? What does that mean for me? What does respect mean? And what does it mean if I feel no respect from other people? What does justice mean? 3 really important themes that we've started to use in some workshops, which are based about a visit here to a significant sporting place where children, because they come here, their ears and their eyes and therefore their minds are open, and they're really responsive to thinking through important and serious subjects like intolerance and the consequences of being intolerant to others and being self-aware about your own intolerance. So we're using this place, this fantastic place, to look at subjects like that. In my work, I work here for Glamorgan, but I also work for Cricket Wales, so that's the recreational part of Wales. My responsibility is to grow the game across the whole of the country with various teams that I have. And particularly, there's been a massive push on growing the game for very small children, all-stars cricket for 5 and 6-year-olds over the last 3 or 4 years. And we know that visits, like Andrew has been talking about, when children come here, and they come into the stadium, even if it's a dull February day when it's cold and grey and bleak, And they come into this little bit here, in between here and the pavilion, and they go, wow, we're all used to these sort of places, aren't we? Lovely big stadium, but it really does open their minds and their ears, and they're very attentive, and they start to be inspired to aspire, as Andrew talked about, and that's the feedback that we get from leaders and teachers. So growing the game is hugely important, but not just numbers. Particularly one of the real big pillars of where the game is going over the next 5 years is transforming the game for women and girls. And I was talking to Emily earlier at coffee break. The history of women in cricket, in running cricket, in playing cricket, in being the face of cricket, isn't strong enough. We need more women to be central and part of that. So in time, we hope that the number of women's faces in cricket museums, in photographs in newspapers, in that heritage record will become gender neutral, which is where the game is going. It's set out to become gender neutral, not just because of playing, but it's the people behind the scenes, it's people like you guys making sport work and making sport heritage work. We need to see more of that. And a third area that the game is really striving to make progress on is diversity. Diversity in playing the game, and again in governing the game and making it happen. This group here is reasonably diverse gender-wise, probably not ethnicity-wise, and cricket has a long way to go in tackling that. So again, in our museums, in our photographic record, in cricket clubs up and down the country, we've got loads of pictures of teams on shares and all that sort of paraphernalia that we come to use to expect as we come into a sports club. And you've seen loads of panels here, and most of the imagery around the ground that Andrew was taking around yesterday, it's still too blokey, white blokes and boys, and we need to expand that so much more so that it represents our society so much more than it does at the moment. So it's still a bit of a picture of the past rather than where society is. So bringing that link of sporting heritage and where the game is going in the future is really, really important. But my final point is that you've heard the enthusiasm of Andrew and Paul last night and today. We have these fantastic places which are filled with history, which are filled with a sense of place for so many people. And that's why we're trying to get as many people into here as possible so that they have that experience, they have that joy, and hopefully a change. They're better people, they're better for the visit. Maybe not if they start singing in French, but hopefully they will be because of the content and the experience they've had here. And we hope that's been the case for you, for your visit here over these 2 days.